Oh, so as white, if you play Sicilian or against Sicilian, you play knight c3 in f4.
Yeah, for the longest time, that's
Nice.
what I played, like even over the board. But then, um, yeah, but then people kind of refuted it, so I was like,
Wait,
yeah,
they
I need to
refuted
adapt.
the Grand Prix?
Or
What?
maybe not refute, but it just got into a position that was not the Grand Prix anymore.
Oh, really? Because like Grand Prix is hard to prevent if you're white. Like once you have this position after knight c3, it's really hard to prevent. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
black
Like
just goes for an early d5 pawn break, and then the the flank attack just doesn't work.
so like e6 d5.
Yeah,
I
like
could
immediately.
show you one recommendation because you can still
Okay.
play Grand Prix. So let's say e6, you play f4, they play d5. You can just basically pretend nothing's happening and just complete development as usual. And you leave the tension in the center. Of course, you have to be prepared because there's different things black can do here. Like
Hmm.
black could play d4, black could take. But they're like, if you're relatively prepared, you'll get comfortable positions in whatever line. Like if takes you're just ahead in development,
Yeah.
and very often you can fianchetto the bishop. A lot of players will play d4 thinking they're gaining space, but then you just develop more. You have 92 coming, and you can still
Hmm.
get your Grand Prix structure.
Yeah, like actually d5, the d4 sabotages black because you know that Grand Prix is about like the flank attack. So if you close the center, you're just setting yourself up.
Yeah, this is one of your dreams. Is like get, especially if knight c6 here, you can take, play knight e2, and then you get kind of a super solid pawn formation, and this
Hmm.
structure is terrible for black on the queen side. I can share one more cool line, and maybe this would be beneficial for people watching too, who play a similar opening as white. Is usually black will play knight c6 here, which is like the most flexible move, keeping all the pressure. Then you can play
Hmm.
bishop b5. And one of your main goals you want to take and still like damage black structure. It's very much worth giving away the bishop pair. And black can't quite play bishop d7 because then you just win the pawn on d5. If black pushes, again you take and play knight e2. So most people try knight e7. And then there's a really cool idea. You take, takes, and queen e2.
Mm.
And I don't know if you ever like maybe studied this line specifically, but
Yeah,
if
Queen
you're like
E2 is
a
something I'd play.
yeah, yeah, it's there was a book written on the Grand Prix by Gawain Jones. He's actually also a streamer, plays sometimes on chess.com. But he went like very in depth into like a whole repertoire and recommends this as like a tricky variation. And the whole point, you're pinning the knight on e7, so you're threatening to take again and damage the structure. And then there's some additional tricks. Like if black tries to break the pin, again you win the pawn because the knight's pinned. If g6, which looks kind of logical to fianchetto, you have a cool move queen e5, just
Ooh.
preventing, basically provoking rook g8, preventing black from castling. And then if black tries to like break the e file with bishop e6, you can still take on c6 because if knight takes you have
F5.
f5. Yeah. So it's just a cool idea that
Hmm.
like if this is one of like your biggest pet peeves is black going for this e6 d5, you can still be prepared with some tricky line.
Hmm.
And it's effective against like against sub master level players. Not too many players study this specific line, so hopefully that helps in some way.
Yeah, yeah. I've never given up on the Grand Prix. It's just I've toned back a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to diversify.
For sure.
But yeah, it's Grand Prix. It's like I discovered this opening when I was rated around 2000. And it was one of the main openings which helped me go from 2000 to 2200. I had a few like good
Way.
tournaments where.
It helped me get from like 1500 to 2000. My
Oh, no
coach was
way.
like, no, it's not good anymore. Like you're
Ah,
playing high rated players.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those openings like it's good to incorporate your in your repertoire. Like if you're an e4 player, at some point, but usually the road to improvement, you want to like be able to understand different sort of structures and not stick with it for, I guess, entirety of your chess career.
For sure.